Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here to a VGC 2016 guide for Dialga. So Dialga isn't going to be that technical of a Pokemon. One or two movesets, not too much differences on the EVs, maybe a supportive Pokemon. Where this guide starts to get complex though, is when we're looking at damage calculations, matchups, and just a little bit of other odd things, because Dialga, it's just a very sturdy and consistent Pokemon. Like, has 100 base hit points, 120 on defense, and 100 special defense, which is about average for a lot of legendary Pokemon. They just have a really good amount of natural bulk. But the way that Dialga plays, you can invest high amounts into hit points, so it is going to have kind of Groudon level EV spreads, and really you're not going to want to change too much unless you're looking for specific matchups. Now here's the reason why Dialga is so consistent though. It comes off a lot tankier than it really is because it's a Steel Dragon typing. Steel Dragon, Fighting Ground. Those are your only weaknesses, and then you get a ton of resistances as well. Normal, Flying, Rock, Bug, Steel, Water, Grass, Electric, and Psychic, and then neutral hits with a lot of common threats like Ice, Dragon, and Fairy. So you're just going to kind of go up against anything, and if you're really defensively invested, you tank it out really well, and that's where we're going to start looking into like these moveset breakdowns and stuff and how everything works out. So initially your first thought is going to be like Draco Meteor, blow everything up, Flash Cannon for the coverage, because I mean you get the stab off of it, and then we also have the Adamant Orb. Adamant Orb is an item that only Dialga can have, and it boosts Steel and Dragon types by 20%. So this works out pretty well, that as long as you're throwing out stab, you're just going to do damage and it's going to get boosted damage. Now you can also run Life Orb, you can run Shucka Berry, you can run Leftovers. It's kind of going to depend on what Dialga set you're running, but basically Adamant Orb, it's your go-to and it can't really fail you too much because it just works out really well with all the coverage you're going for. So we have Draco Meteor, Flash Cannon, Protect. That's going to be your standard, and then the other moves are going to vary. You can go for a Trick Room set, for example. Trick Room might want to change things around. You have like the Quiet Nature. That way you can still like max out the special attack, max out the hit points, survive the first turn by just eating up tons of hits or getting a support Pokemon, Fake Out, anything like that. We'll talk about that in a bit as well. But yeah, you just Trick Room, and then now you have Life Orb potential for just tons of damage on that Trick Room with like Draco Meteor just one-shotting things. You can also go Flash Cannon, and then we also have other levels of coverage. Now Dialga's coverage does go pretty deep for a legendary Pokemon. We have Ice Beam Blizzard, we have Flamethrower Fire Blast, we have Thunderbolt Thunder, Earthquake, not really, because we also have like Earth Power and stuff. So we do get a really wide coverage pool. We get all the elemental stuff that we can need. So whatever your holes your team needs to fill, Dialga can just be there for the coverage, and it can also just be there as a really solid Trick Room setter if it's needed as well. So it's going to be kind of hard to read for your opponent. Also, some other things that we can run: Thunder Wave, Dragon Pulse, Metal Burst, Fire Blast. Like, these are just things that work out. Fire Blast, we're seeing quite a bit of Ferrothorn from here and there. Also Caesar, Pokemon that just don't like eating fire hits. Fire Blast versus the Aegislash is an interesting matchup. Going to be really solid amounts of damage, but it does have that accuracy drop. So I mean, 85% accuracy compared to a 100% off of an Earth Power. Earth Power is going to do less damage. They both don't have stab. So that's going to be up to you if you want to run it or not. Both have their own benefits. We'll talk about Dragon Pulse matchups, and then you can do Shucka Berry, Leftovers. So it seems like Dialga has a lot for it, but pretty much it's going to be these three moves, and then your tech. Or if you're running Trick Room, you might be able to get rid of the Protect and then put in an extra coverage move. It does reduce your outplay potential, but depending on how much control you have over the game with that Trick Room, the extra coverage will be able to win you games. And then there's also the topic of Telepathy Dialga. This is an interesting Pokemon. For the Hoopa movie in Japan, there was a Telepathy Dialga, also Palkia and Giratina giveaway, but it can only have the Modest Nature. And we don't know if we're getting this one outside of Japan yet. It would be really nice for Game Freak or the Pokemon Company to release this Pokemon to everyone else for VGC legal play, but until then, it's kind of an interesting thought, but we might as well look at it. So with this Telepathy, it works out really well because you can just Earthquake, and then Dialga doesn't take super effective damage. Same with Surf. Discharge, you can do a lot of really widespread damage with it, and then Dialga's going to be fine. Maybe even an Explosion gimmick if you want to run it like that. So Dialga can kind of make that work in its favor pretty well, but at the same time it has to be modest. So you can run it in Trick Room, but you can also get undersped by the Dialga. You can just kind of run it as your regular modest Dialga, so a set like this, but with Telepathy instead, it's not the biggest deal. Like, it's not the end of the world unless you really have to run an Earthquake Pokemon next to it. Now, if you are, then that means you don't have to worry about Fire Blast. You don't have to worry about running something else like the Earth Power, because you're getting that ground coverage. You're getting the other coverage from the move that would otherwise be hitting you with that Telepathy. So that is something to consider if you want to do it. You can play with it, play without it. You're just going to have to adapt a little, but yeah, you can put next to an Earthquake Pokemon. Could work on the Trick Room, but you won't be as slow, but then you just put an Earthquake Pokemon that's slow next to it, and it can still do a lot of really awesome things. So that's just like the moveset breakdowns for Dialga. As for the matchups, well, the first thing I went to was Primal Groudon. How well does that Draco Meteor match up against Primal Groudon? Answer, pretty well. Draco Meteor level 50 in doubles and all sorts of other things going up. Going to have a small chance to, decent chance to KO. I don't consider like the 62% chance super reliable, but it is a chance to KO. You can chip in a little bit of extra damage with another Pokemon. Any kind of little supportive move might be the little bit extra it takes to knock out the Primal Groudon, so that can work in your favor, but this will be with the Life Orb. If we are going to be running the Adamant Orb, then there's very, very little chance that we're going to be able to get the Draco Meteor KO, only 12.5%, and then the Precipice Blades technically has more damage, but I was trying to see like if Earth Power means anything here. Earth Power doesn't really work out. Even with the Life Orb, you're not finding ridiculous amounts of KO potential, so the Earth Power isn't the big deal, and Precipice Blades actually not being able to KO you consistently just shows how tanky this Pokemon can be. Now what I was thinking about with the EVs is that we can do like 16 speed EVs, that way we can outspeed and do like weird speed creep things because, oh, they have a base 90 speed Pokemon. They're running an Adamant Groudon, but they're going like high hit point investment, high special attack investment. You might be able to outspeed them in that situation, or other Dialga, they're only running 12 speed EVs, bulky 90 base speed Pokemon. Like, speed creep is its own weird thing that you just have to understand by yourself and understand, do you want to be the person that risks those couple hit point investment points just to maybe outspeed the offset of a Groudon or something. So it's not guaranteed, but that's something you can do. Also, you can maybe even split it a bit. If you want to take some off the special attack, you know, we can just drop this down to 240, and then we can move 24 over here by taking out that. And now it's going to be to where we're going to be, we don't need to put that in attack, we need to put it in defense. So now we can make it to where it's going to be slightly less damage on the Precipice Blades. So you can look to either knock off some more hit point investments. So now what we can do is we can go 200, and then we can also go, what would that be, 68, I believe? So we can go 68, and then it just keeps lowering it. So if you want to go more defensive investment, this is what I was talking about. If you just make those little tweaks to what Dialga needs to match up against, you can kind of swing those matches into your favor just a little more at a time, or you can run the consistent hit points, special attack, don't worry about, you know, you're good against everything in that situation. Special attackers with Earth Power, you know, that's not going to be as crazy, but Primal Groudon is arguably a lot more common. If you're too worried about that, Wide Guard Pokemon work out really well. Hitmontop. Hitmontop is awesome. It has the Fake Out, and then it can go into Wide Guard if it needs to. There's just quite a few Wide Guard Pokemon that you can kind of work in your favor with this one, and some of them are pretty useful. Honedge, so that means we can have the Aegislash. Wide Guard Aegislash is a small tech Pokemon, but you see it from time to time. So yeah, they try to Earthquake your Aegislash and your Dialga. Well, that eats up their turn right there. Dialga gets some free damage. Depending on the Pokemon that you're using, you might be able to run Trick Room next to it, but unfortunately, as you can see, there's not a ton of Wide Guard Pokemon, but Machamp works out really well. I mean, you Wide Guard the Machamp, you can Dynamic Punch for Confusion, kind of shut down one of your opponent's Pokemon while Dialga handles the other one. There are some plays to be made here. Same with Follow Me. You can have a Follow Me Pokemon that's like just Togetic works out really well because it has that flying typing, so it's at least not going to be able to be affected by any ground type attacks. Even Earth Power, you can Follow Me in Earth Power, boom, Togetic's going to be completely safe from that one. That's where you can set up a Trick Room for yourself. That's where you get free damage. So there are those little plays, and then just the standard support Pokemon that Fake Out. Anything really powerful like that can work out. I've seen Kangaskhan next to Dialga, just, okay, Fake Out, go for damage. Then you just keep piling on the damage. You're not going to be super fast, but you're playing like a mid-range speed, high amounts of bulk, high amounts of damage, and that can be pretty successful. Your other matchups, Xerneas is interesting. You're a Steel-type Pokemon that gets stabbed Flash Cannon, but it doesn't do ridiculous amounts of damage. Adamant Orb is going to be 88 to 105% before it does the Geomancy. After it does Geomancy, it will be doing half damage, which can be a problem. If we go and we tack on a Life Orb right here just to see how much extra damage we get closer. So there are some things you can do, like say if you have like Fake Out pressure onto the Xerneas, you know, it doesn't get its Geomancy, Fake Out into Flash Cannon, that's a KO right there. That's what you have to think about supportive Pokemon. Is Xerneas that scary to your team? If it is, then that means you might want to be aware of that. Have Taunt into just going for Flash Cannon damage, and then you pick it up afterwards, because now it's slower. You don't have to worry about too much if it does get shut down on that Taunt turn. You can get free damage on the other Pokemon, like you bring Fake Out. So you either force Xerneas into the Protect, you fake out Geomancy, and then you hit the other Pokemon for a lot of damage. That could work out pretty well. You can also look at the speed breakdowns. Xerneas, since it's going for that speed, since it's going for that Geomancy, it doesn't need to high invest in speed because it's already doubling. So even that 99 base speed, if you want to, sacrifice some speed investment on this and then you go for faster Dialga. Faster Dialga is going to outspeed more 80 base speed Pokemon. It's going to reach those higher levels as you invest more and more into it. And now you can comfortably outspeed a lot of Xerneas on this. You can still get a little bit of tankiness back. It's not going to be like an insane amount of tankiness. But you can still cover really well and you still have a lot of damage. Focus Blast has a very low chance of KOing you with 4 hit point investments. So I mean, if we go up to like 12 or something, it can't KO you on that Focus Blast, which is something you can work into your favor. You still have Flash Can damage. Now Life Orb recoil does hurt a bit. So let's rework this into a Trick Room scenario just for last, because Dialga isn't going to be this hard ultimate stop to Xerneas, but if Dialga and Xerneas hit the field at the same time, it's going to be pretty nice. Say you go for the Trick Room, say you have some kind of setup for it, it gets its +2s, you get that, well at least you're going to be able to do 55% to it, and it has to risk a Focus Blast on you, because unless it's running Moonblast hitting you with that, or if it's using Dazzling Gleam won't be able to knock out your Dialga, and you still have that Trick Room advantage. You're doing damage to it first, and then you can also maybe find the other 50-40% from the other Pokemon onto Xerneas, and you can knock out the Xerneas while trading your Dialga, and then you still have Trick Room advantage. That's a potential right there. So it's just more going into the breakdowns of how these little matchups could work, but at least Dialga into Xerneas, not the worst thing that could happen at all. Let's look at the Mega Rayquaza matchup. This is actually really, really good for Dialga because you eat up all of Rayquaza's hits and then you can just throw out the Dragon Pulse. Now, actually, I wonder how the Earthquake looks. That could be a bit of... Actually, no, Earthquake doesn't even threat you, especially in doubles when we get all that damage down. So yeah, Rayquaza, it does good. Like, it has to have more than 160 special attack investment, but then you don't have to worry about its Dragon's Ascent being nasty. So a mix, like a mid-mix Draco Meteor, doesn't have a really high chance of KOing you, even if it goes like 252. If it's a full Timid invested, you still don't have perfect odds of knocking out. It's actually still pretty low odds of handling Dialga, and no matter what it does, Dragon Pulse, just going to knock it out. So that really threatens the Mega Rayquaza if they're both on the field at the same time, and both of the Pokemon are fairly healthy. That Dialga's like, alright, I can scare you off. So it's pretty simple and shows running the Dragon Pulse over anything else. We can also look at a Pokemon like Primal Kyogre. This matchup, while it isn't really won by either side, you have to throw out the Draco Meteor, cut your special attack in half, just do a little bit of damage. Primal Kyogre doesn't have anything. If we have a modest 252 special attack using Origin Pulse, the split damage in doubles level 50, it just isn't there. Like, it's still a 3-hit KO on that Origin Pulse, so at least you can stay in, get some damage. I was thinking, like, what if we have the Thunder? So with the Life Orb, it does do really solid amounts of damage, and it won't take too much effort to finish off the Primal Kyogre after that. It just needs a little bit of damage after you survive the Origin Pulse, and you're good to go from there. Really, nothing threatens it too much on the Primal Kyogre end, which is really nice. And you can just kind of play that to your advantage, and it just shows, alright, Thunder, if you want to run that. If you want to go tankier set, if you want to do Thunder Wave, if you want to do all these weird little things over here, you can do it. Metal Burst. Metal Burst is interesting because, as you notice, a lot of Pokemon don't fully KO you. So if you want to KO them back and you don't really need to throw out the damage and stuff, you can hold on to that Metal Burst. I feel it's a very, very, very niche. It's not like everyone should be running Metal Burst, but if you feel it's confident and goes with your playstyle, you can maybe tech that in and find some hidden KOs. The Mega Salamence matchup, it's kind of the same thing. Ice Beam does a lot of damage, Dragon Pulse does a lot of damage, and I think that's really all that there is to Dialga. So just look for the specific matchups, look at the damage calculations, see what support you need to, and then other than that, it's pretty much the same Dialga. But I will say that for a lot of the situations, you don't really need the Draco Meteor unless you're looking for like neutral one-hit KOs. If you're just looking for those super effective hits on the Dragon Pulse, it's more than enough damage with the Dragon Pulse, and then you can just Dragon Pulse, Flash Cannon, and Trick Room. You can run that other coverage move. You can do quite a bit with Dialga, but at the same time, you do need to keep it under control with like its base level of play and small amounts of changes. So if you guys enjoyed the video, that's how you use Dialga for VGC 2016. I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching.